Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Profit Minds podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Stephen Kirch, creator of the Profit Minds Growth System, a unique blend of profit growth, productivity acceleration, and building robust business process for scale. In every episode, I interview entrepreneurs and small business owners from around the world with a unique story to tell. You can find the show on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple and Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and more. Well, hello, everyone. Today, my guest is James Brown, the CEO and founder of Business Accelerator Institute and the Perseverance Squared. Today, we're going to talk about breaking the sacrifice myth, building a business that works for you. Welcome, James.
Thank you so much for having me, Steve.
So, first question, always, tell us your story. How did you get to be the founder of the Business Accelerator Institute, and what is Perseverance
Squared? That's always a good question. In fact, I have the tattoo on my arm here, Perseverance, and I have a lot of people will say, "Oh, I thought that was just photoshopped on there." No, it's actually on my arm. And so It's just it speaks to my growth as a person. I had a very unorthodox path to get where I am today. And, when I was in high school, I knew I wanted to go to law school. I can't tell you why, I just knew I wanted to go to law school. And I met my wife. In fact, we've been married 40 years this year.
Congratulations.
We started dating when we were 17. And then at 19, at 18, I told my parents that we're getting married, and they were like, "You're going to quit school. You'll never finish. You'll never do anything." Right. And I'm like, "Don't tell me I can't do something." And so I persevere. Right. And when I was in law school, through undergraduate and law school, I worked on the assembly line at General Motors. I built cars, 528 cars a day. I put the rear struts on them. And then I went to school at night. And when I was getting ready to graduate law school and I took the bar exam, General Motors announced that they were going to close our plant. And I sent out 200 resumes and I got zero response, none.
Wow.
And a colleague at the time told somebody that, "Oh, by the way, Joe says that you won't amount to anything as a lawyer." Okay, don't tell me I can't do something. All right. But it forced me, Steve, to start my own firm right out of law school. And because of my background in blue collar, I saw a lot of people that lost everything because of layoffs, like things that weren't in their control. So I decided to start a consumer bankruptcy firm. And we started it in St. Louis in 1994. We started it in August of that year. And the first year we ended up doing around 300,000 in the first 4 months. And I was just kind of feeling my way through it and copying what everybody else was doing, which was a big mistake in hindsight. And I started studying the human buying process and what makes people take action. So I changed my marketing messages. And it's the first week that I changed my marketing message, I went from averaging 2 to 3 clients a week to we signed 68 clients that week. And then the second week was 72 and the third week was 63. And I'm like, "Oh my goodness." Right. And it was just me and my wife. And so all of a sudden, my factory's about to implode. This ties into a little bit of another topic, but I look at every business has the same 7 working parts, right? It's just that sales is something different. I sold legal services. I have a client right now that is a hard cider company out of the state of Washington. They sell alcohol, but the 7 working parts of the business are your marketing, your sales, your factory to produce what it is you promise to the customer, people to run the factory, your physical plant, which is either virtual or brick and mortar, your money and metrics and all of those things. And then you, the business owner, is the 7th part. And so my marketing and sales took off like this, and then my factory started to implode, right? And I didn't have any people. So I had to hurry up. I got in trouble with the federal court, and I didn't get a bar complaint or nothing like that, but I had to figure out systems and procedures for that volume of work. And by getting that in place, that started to buy my time back as an entrepreneur. And one of the key things about this topic that you asked about was, I heard all through law school, and I heard all of these business owners saying, oh, you have to work 70, 80 hours a week to be successful. And I'm sorry, but when I started the business, I had a 5-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old. And I made it in my mind that I would not miss anything of theirs. No school functions, no, anything. They played travel hockey. So I went to all their hockey. And so I set out to build a firm where I was allowed to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's another one of those, don't tell me I can't.
Correct.
Right.
Right. And that was bucking the
There's a
entire
theme there,
system,
James.
right? That was bucking the entire system of what a lawyer had to do was work 70 to 80 hours. And I wasn't going to do it. I'm going to leave at 4:30 every day. Now, our business was open from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. and on Saturdays. I wasn't there, though. I built the systems and I hired the people to run the systems, so I didn't need to be. And I broke through the doctrine of sacrifice. And that's how I built my entire firm. So when I hired lawyers, I said, you're not allowed to work more than 40 hours here. And they just looked at me like I was from Mars. And I said, if I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to have you guys do it. And that was one of the big cultural shifts in our firm, was they didn't have to sacrifice their family just because somebody says so.
I'd be willing to bet that probably helped with retention too.
It did. In my St. Louis office, so I had offices. I started in St. Louis, and then in two years later, we opened in Detroit, Michigan, and then about a year and a half later in Kansas City, Missouri, and then about 3 years later in Miami.
Lights went out.
Whoop, you still there?
I'm still here. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know what happened right there. So my computer just went completely black. I'm sorry about that. But I had 4 offices spread in different geographic areas. And one of the things that taught me was people are people, and they react the same way. And if you build that culture, so we took the St. Louis model and went to Detroit, and it worked exactly the same. And so my goal was I didn't want to actively practice law past the age of 50. So 2014, I sold the firm. I was 49 years old, and then I went into consulting. And so now I help small business owners grow in a very predictable, profitable way. People think growth and you think, oh, just go like this. And I think that's not for everybody. And sometimes it's kind of like a stair step approach, right? Because you're growing really fast, and then you're building your systems and your people, and then you grow, and then you got systems and people, and then you grow. And I think that's what the businesses that I've worked with, that's a more sustainable growth model.
Yeah, that's really true. I mean, some people, it's growth at any cost. Well, sometimes that cost is too high, and it ruins lives, it ruins marriages, it ruins families. So let's talk about what does it take to build a business that works for you?
Well, I think you have to. So in everything everything that exists, there's 2 creations to it, right? The first is in your mind.
Yep.
You come up with an idea. And then the second is go out and make it a reality. And that story that I just told is exactly what I did. And so a lot of people will get hung up because they have this idea in their mind, but it remains this like elusive thing that is just out there, and they don't go and do the steps to put it in place in reality. And I give the example sometimes of when we're building a home. We first think about what we want in that home and all of the things we want in it. And then we start to put the architectural plans together, and you do all of this stuff before you dig that first shovel of dirt, but all of that, creating it in your mind. So for me, think about what you want that business to be. Do I want a business where I'm going to have to serve it and I'm going to have to be there all the time and it can't function without me? Or do I want to build a business that buys my time back so I can choose to be there or not? And that allowed me, by creating that in my mind and then going out and making it happen, it allowed me to do the things that were important to me: travel with my kids for hockey, volunteer with the Red Cross and go on deployments. And when we would go on deployments, they would call us and say, "Hey, we have a hurricane in Florida. Can you go?" And I say, "Yes." And they say, "You have to leave in 24 hours. And I'd be gone for 30, 35 days at a time. And the business doesn't miss a beat because of having it structured along the 7 parts of the business and the systems and procedures. And I knew that even if I wasn't there, things were going to happen very systematically. And that allowed me to go do the things that I really wanted to do. Now that business is serving me, not the other way around.
That's one of the questions I ask, right? Is, do you own your business or does your business own you?
Great question.
Right. It's the same kind of thing.
Yes.
So what's the first step so you must have a system, right?
Yes.
Given what you've talked about. What's the first step? What do you need to do first to get this in place?
I usually talk to people about, the first thing is, what is your why?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you doing this? Why aren't you just working for somebody else? Why did you choose to start your own business? Why did you choose to sell this thing versus this thing? If we look at a lawyer, why did I choose bankruptcy law over every other practice area out there? And so when people have difficulty explaining what their why is, I don't know why this is happening. Don't know why that's happening.
Yeah. It's
because my lights and everything aren't going out. It's just the screens are going off.
That's weird.
So why do you do what you do? Because you're going to have days in your business when you have to have that clear why, because you're going to want to quit. Things are going to get hard. The concept of building a profitable, sustainable business is simple, but nobody says it's easy. And I will say that 100%. It's not easy. So I think, to start the process, I really dig into what is your why? And if you don't have one, you're not going to survive, in the world of business. So what is it that you want to anchor back on? I give the story of, I remember my kids, that was the first time I kind of watched them. My wife was out of town and they were 7, 4, and 3 at the time. And so time to get them all to school, and they come downstairs, I get them up, they come downstairs, and, they start eating cereal, and the young one knocks the cereal over on herself. So I got to take her up, get her changed, come back down. I got her shirt on inside out, got to flip that around, get her some more food. Now we're getting ready to run out the door. It's a cold October day and it's raining. And I'm like, oh, great. Right. So I go to get him in the car, I get her in the car seat, and then I look over and my 4-year-old threw up on himself. And I'm like, okay, back inside. Upstairs we go, we change him, we get him back in the car. On the way to school, I had a flat tire. I had to get out and change it, and I had to be in court at 9:00.
Oh my goodness.
And so after I did all that, I came back home because now I'm soaking wet. I changed clothes, and when I was coming down the stairs, I missed a step, and I went boom, 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 all the way down the stairs. And I'm thinking, why on earth do I want to come back tomorrow and do this again? But in reality, it was for those kids. My why was building a lifestyle that I was always present for them. And they still, now today they're 35, 32, and 31. And they're doing it with their kids. And they're like, we still remember that you were at everything and you were at every dinner and you were, and I think that goes on. And that was my why, so understanding what that is for a small business owner, a lot of times we'll have an idea and then it's like, oh, we get an entrepreneurial brain fart and let's go start a business. But
that sounds like the E-Myth, right? That's
yeah, exactly. And so there's no thought process behind it. And then when things do start to get tough, we end up quitting.
Yeah.
So that's my starting point always, because if they don't have a strong why, it's going to be hard for them to succeed.
And so after you get going on this, where's the biggest stumbling block for the small business owner? Where?
Right there.
Yeah.
Right in between the ears.
How does that manifest?
Yeah, and that's why the seventh working part of the business is you. And there is a big mindset component. And how it'll manifest is in terror barriers, where they've never done something before and they've never realized it before. So then they're scared to do it.
Mm.
And I kind of explain it. Let's think of a 7 or 8 story building. And okay, you got to go, you want to get to the top level, man. That's the place to be. So you go in that first floor and you're finding clues and you have to master everything on the first floor. And you get all these clues and it says, get in that little room right there. It's an elevator and you've never been in an elevator. So you go jump in the elevator and you're like, what's going to happen next? And then the doors start to close and you jump off. Because you don't know what's going to happen, right? That's a terror barrier. And so the mindset of the business owner a lot of times is they have terror barriers based on their limiting beliefs. They had something happen once before, or they heard something from somebody else that had happened, and they develop belief that's what's going to happen in the future. And so they avoid it. And so a lot of the way I will talk to owners is, what if it doesn't have to be that way? What if there's a different way to do it? I'm going to keep talking while this does this. I don't know why it did it again, but I'm going to keep talking here. But I asked them, what if there's a different way to think about this? And if you could see a different result, would you be willing to try it? And when they come up with a terror barrier, I usually tell them, take a step back and let's look at is it an illusion or is it based in fact? And usually it's an illusion. Even after 20 years of practicing law, I would still get sick to my stomach to go into court and make an argument. And I literally would have to stop myself. And I'm like, when is the last time I lost an argument? I couldn't remember. And so the illusion of that, and all the people would laugh at me, was a terror barrier. And when I figured out it's an illusion, I can push through it. And when you can break through those terror barriers, there's no stopping you.
Yeah, that's really true. As you pointed out at the very beginning, right? It's you have the first the thought and then the action follows, right?
Correct.
And that can be a positive thought or a negative thought. And one of the biggest things that I've learned is that your response to a particular situation is really the only thing you can control.
That's correct.
Right. And that's exactly what you're talking about here is, that anxiety that you feel about going into court. And, oh, by the way, neuroscience tells us that anxiety or anxiousness and excitement are exactly the same thing.
Yes.
So you can choose to reframe the butterflies in your stomach as excitement for what's coming, as opposed to anxiety over what's coming.
Yes.
And so that mindset shift that you're talking about there is exactly that for again, for the small business owner who's never done this before.
Right.
Oh, I'm excited to try something new, or I'm afraid to try something new. Right?
Yeah.
It feels the same.
Yeah. And one of the things I always talk to them about is what would it like? I just got off a call with a client who is on pace to make about 200,000 a year this year in her business. And I'm like, next year we built out her business plan and her marketing plan, and I've got it set where she can hit $1 million. And she's like having a panic attack. Right. And I'm like, start thinking like $1 million business owner. Right. If you don't know what that should be, that's why you run it by me. That's why you run it by other people who've already done it. Start making decisions like you're already the owner of $1 million business. And when people can't envision that, that's when you have to stop and find out what is that stopping point? What is really going on? Because if they can't push through that, then they likely will never do the things that we're asking them to do.
That's really insightful. That whole, step back and say, okay, well, if you're not able to do that, what is it that's blocking you? What's the fear? What's that terror event, if you will, that terror horizon that you just can't push through? And again, ask yourself, is it real or is it just imagined?
Yeah. And a lot of times it's just the anxiety is from that fear of the unknown. I joke about this, but I take my kids and now my grandkids to Disney World like twice a year. And there's a ride at Hollywood Studios called Hollywood Tower of Terror. And it literally is like you go through like an elevator, and then it opens the doors and you drop, but it's never the same. Every time you go on it, it's never the same. Sometimes it'll go up, sometimes it goes down, sometimes it just goes like this, and then it drops, and then it goes up. And so I hate that ride with a passion, because like if you ride a roller coaster for the first time, you're anxious, but then you know what's going to happen and you never fear it anymore. But that ride drives me crazy, and I won't ride it because I get too anxious about it. So, I think the fear of the unknown and finding somebody that has been there and done that before is really key to being able to step into areas that you're uncomfortable. I tell people all the time, get comfortable being uncomfortable.
And that's why you hire a coach.
Yeah.
Right. That's why, the best sports figures in the world, not only do they have physical coaches, but they all have mindset coaches.
Yes.
I had a guest on here a few episodes ago who was a former professional athlete, and he said the difference between the guys at the very top, and I'll be sexist here because we're talking about mostly professional male athletes, but the difference between the guys at the very top and the guys who don't make it, it's here.
Yes.
And I think that's true for small business owners as well.
I agree. There's a light bulb moment you'll see in someone. I had an immigration lawyer that came to me at the beginning of 24, and the most she's ever made was like 250,000 a year. And I said, I just need you to trust me. And thank God she was one of those people that just does everything you tell her, just blindly does it.
Wow. I'd like to have some clients like that. Oh,
the last 3 months, her revenue has been 70,000 a month. So she's on pace to hit 850,000. She's on that run rate. And she's like, I don't even know how to explain how we got from there to here other than just listening to somebody who's been there before. And so once they have that light bulb moment, there's no stopping them.
That's great. So you have a free gift for our listeners?
Yes,
Tell us
I
about
wrote a book. It's called Top 10 Mistakes That Will Destroy Your Business. And I think it's some of these things that as a business owner, we do because we just don't know what we don't know. And so we'll make these mistakes and it's hard to undo them, costing you a lot of time and a lot of money, in growing that business. I tell people all the time that I probably made more mistakes than you've even thought of, and I did it solo. So I didn't have anybody to lean on or ask. And so I made a lot of expensive mistakes. And so this book is designed to point out, those top 10 mistakes and how you can avoid them.
Cool. Yeah, and we'll put the link to that in the show notes.
Okay.
So, and James, if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, they can. We're going to create the landing page just for your listeners, so they can find information there. They can download the book there. You're going to put that in the show notes.
Yep.
They can go to our website, businessaccelerator.institute, and then they can email us at info@businessaccelerator.institute.
Great. And that concludes our show. Thanks so much to my guest, James Brown, the CEO, founder of Business Accelerator Institute and Perseverance Squared. I hope
Thank
you
you for
learned
having me,
something
Steve.
about breaking the sacrifice myth, building a business that works for you. I know I did. Thanks for listening. You've been listening to the Profit Minds podcast. This is your host, Dr. Stephen Kirch. Please visit www.profitminds.net for other episodes or to contact me. Thank you for your positive feedback, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others. Thanks for listening. Have a grateful day.